I'm Emma. I'm from Zero Carbon, Cambridge, and I thought I'd talk a bit first about COP21 and some of the views I've had on it and we've discussed in our meetings, and then go on to talk about how we're approaching divestment in Cambridge, our successes last year and our plans for this year. So COP21 was, I think it was a really exciting chance for 195 countries to come together and do something about climate change. It's been described as a turning point for the climate, the first time a legally binding agreement has been made to really curb emissions, pioneering, progressive, the world's greatest diplomatic success even. 50,000 people attended the conference. At the end there was a massive Mexican wave standing ovation undulating across the crowd as everyone cheered and applauded that this agreement had been made. And now we're a year on, 55 countries coming together to ratify the agreement, and 55 countries producing more than 55% of emissions. And on the 4th of November, it will finally come into force. Politicians across the globe have come together to implement positive change. And yet, we need extreme action now, not in 2020 when each country needs to submit their nationally determined contribution and submit a climate pledge. Not in 2023 when we have our evaluation of how the plan's been going so far. Not in 2030 when we look back and we realise that we didn't do enough. So academics have criticised the plan, saying that it gives us false hope, and that 3 degrees of warming is what we're going to get by the end of the century, even if we stick to the plan. That's way too much. Bill McKibben, one of the founders of the divestment movement, said that 1.5 degrees is the absolute limit. That means that it's not 80% of fossil fuel reserves existing that need to remain in the ground. Not even 90%, it's 100%. The new number is 0. But it's easy to criticise a deal like Paris Agreement. But global problems require global solutions. And maybe rather than just pointing out the faults, we should be trying as hard as we can to make this deal work. And good things are happening, like the deal in Kigali to limit hydrofluorocarbons. If only we could do the same for fossil fuels. An analogy is that the Paris Agreement is the nails in the coffin for the fossil fuel industry. But it's up to civil society to hold the policymakers to their words and to really catalyse the downfall of greenhouse gas emissions. So to do this, we need mobilisation. Climate change to a lot of people just feels like something abstract or distant. Like doing our bit for the environment is turning off the lights and emptying the recycling. But the government seems rather internalised and self-centred when it comes to these issues. For example, since Paris, they've cut their solar panel subsidies by nearly 65%, legalised fracking in national parks and other areas, and released plans to explore oil and gas reserves in 4,500 square miles. According to Craig Bennett, CEO of Friends of the Earth, the government is schizophrenic, saying one thing abroad and doing something very different back home. It's like a monopoly game, and we're in it to win. But what we don't realise is that winning isn't just our nation coming out on top. It's securing the promise of a future for all citizens of the Earth. And I think that student activism nowadays is quite muted. It's like we're disengaged from the problems of the world, so caught up with issues like grades and tuition fees that we forget what really matters. According to Desmond Tutu, we need an apartheid-style boycott to save the planet. So, why divestment? Cambridge University has a £5 billion endowment fund, and we're not entirely sure how much of that's invested in fossil fuels. They didn't grant us our freedom of information request, but the estimate's about 250 million, although we think that's quite a conservative estimate. But it's the moral duty of any university to act in the benefit and welfare of society, and we believe that this means not funding fossil fuel companies. What kind of evidence are they waiting for? In Bangladesh, intense storms and inadequate flood defences have led to tens of thousands of unnecessary deaths. and the loss of countless communities. According to the World Bank, 40% of productive land in the southern region is going to be lost in the next 65 years, with 65 centimetres of sea level rising. This is another example of how climate change disproportionately affects the poor, those who have contributed least to the climate crisis. That makes the UK, as the 5th largest emitter, even more morally responsible to change this. And Cambridge University, with the largest endowment fund of any university in Europe, should be leading the way. The investment policy currently has no ethical regulation, which we think contradicts a lot of the research and teaching that goes on here, particularly in geography, atmospheric chemistry, and sustainable development departments. So although divestment doesn't directly damage fossil fuel companies, it provides a huge force, a powerful signal to business and political leaders to catalyse a rapid transformation to a greener economy and change in government policy that we so need. So other universities, such as in the UK, such as Glasgow, KCL, have already divested, and we like to see other local governments and companies that have also divested too. So Zero Carbon's campaign was launched in Michaelmas 2015, and we've had huge success over the last year. We started with a banner drop in Michaelmas term. We also did a couple of other direct actions, a march at the beginning of Easter term, which had over 300 people attending. And that really symbolised the support we gained over the year. We also like to do creative actions to make people think. So one of the things we did was burst the carbon bubble, where we had big carbon bubbles and we stood on King's Parade. And also Red Lines campaign, where we put red tape across some of the places in Cambridge to symbolise the bureaucracy that prevents direct action being made on climate change. We had a petition signed by over 2,000 students, 2,193, I'm still counting, please sign it. And we released a 74-page report where we outlined why Cambridge University should divest for moral, ethical, and economic reasons. We also had an open letter signed by 100 fellows from the university, as well as local organisations, student societies, and public figures. So that all shows how hard we worked last year. So there was a working group put together by the university to discuss their ethical investment policy. And at the end of the year, they didn't agree to divest. They didn't particularly respond that seriously to our campaign. For example, they had the student consultation in August when no one was around. They didn't have a student rep on their committee. They didn't even take minutes. And their report at the end, it was quite short. We were quite disappointed because they didn't present any clear and definitive arguments why the university didn't want to divest. It seemed quite confused and fragmented. The media framed this as Cambridge University blacklists coal and tar sands, which it sounds quite dramatic, but it basically means that they don't currently have any assets in coal and tar sands and they don't intend to in the immediate future. But the national media coverage did add some momentum to our campaign, and over the coming year, we're aiming for full divestment. So in order to do this, we plan to bypass the University Council and go straight to Regent House, which is the governing body of the university that all fellows have a vote. Therefore, this term, we need to gain support fellows and spread the word around the university. Our reach, particularly amongst fellows, is still quite small, but we definitely are confident that divestment is possible with their support. We aim to push forward a grace and then get a discussion at the end of this term, following a vote at the beginning of next term. We've had overwhelming student support, and the fellows that we've spoken to, many of them have been sympathetic to our cause, so it's just a matter of spreading the word, making our campaign more known. Although there's a lot of red tape, our campaign is growing in momentum, so it's a really exciting time to be part of it. The divestment movement is about so much more than just fossil fuels. It's about inspiring positive change across the spectrum, building connections between other groups and people with the same end goal. For example, Zero Carbon's teamed up with the BNE campaign. We also had submissions for open letter from Islamic Society, Vegan Society, Nature Society, the Young Greens, Fossil Free Cambridgeshire, Transition Cambridge, and many other groups. So that shows that climate change isn't just an issue for environmentalists, it's an issue for everyone. People who care about social justice, people who care about gender equality. And it's about working together to engage with this issue on both a local and a global scale. I think that it's easy to get into the mindset that the problems of today, rainforest destruction, poverty, sea level rising, climate change, excessive resource consumption, are inevitable, unchangeable, just things we have to adapt to live alongside. But it doesn't have to be like this. The divestment movement is for the change makers, for the idealists, and for the people with a vision. So I really hope that a lot of people here today are already part of it or would like to be part of it.